Hello and welcome to R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm Kayla McGowan, editor-in-chief, and today we're going to talk about AI and how it can help your business not only in 2025 but beyond. Today's special guest is Trevor Parker Martin. He is the co-founder and vice president of product and marketing of Know How. Under his product leadership, Know How is revolutionizing training and development for restoration and professionals across Northern America. Know How has been recognized as one of the most AI focused companies in our space. So, without further ado, please welcome Travis.
Kayla, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to chat about this.
I am too. I think, our generation, no stranger to AI or technology, but our industry as a whole, we have people from all over in generations and just age and experience. And I think AI is just one of those things it could be a little scary. So, you know, I think this is what this is for. We're here to ease people's mind and understand how they can utilize it for efficiency and effectiveness and honestly level up their business with the help of AI.
I couldn't agree more. When you look at the conversation about artificial intelligence, I think there's the doomer camp, right? That's like, hey, this is gonna destroy everything. And then there's I don't know, maybe the denialist camp that's like, it's a bunch of snake oil. It's all hype. And the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? I mean, OpenAI certainly wants us to believe that it's going to fundamentally change the world. And I'm not sure if I'm fully there yet. I don't think we'll all be, sipping Bahama Mamas on an island 20 years from now while robots are doing our work for us. But at the same time, there are companies that are seeing a radical transformation in efficiency because they are leveraging artificial intelligence for something that's directly related to the business that they do. And one of the big bets that we have at Know How is by the end of 2025, you're going to see a market difference between companies that have put their chips in on AI and those who haven't. And so I'm excited to help separate the wheat from the chaff a little bit in this conversation.
Yeah, I definitely think it's pros and cons. There's pros and cons in everything that we do and in all aspects of our business, and I think AI is no different. And so with Know How, we know that you guys are really big in AI and you assist with not only knowledge but how to's, and you collaborate in order to help our industry propel honestly to the next level of greatness in my eyes. So how can a platform like Know How help our fellow restoration professionals?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what you should know about AI, anyone who's listening about this and they're not really sure what's true and what's not true about AI, I won't speak to what AI in 2030 is going to look like. That's hard to predict, but as of today, what AI is great at is processing massive amounts of data faster than a human can and giving you insights in the way that you ask for it. And so when you think about all the knowledge that somebody needs in order to do their job, well, especially in the restoration industry, right? It's so diverse from mold mitigation to how to do contents right. In California, you've got a ton of people that are trying to remember what do you do with all this smoke and fire damage, and maybe they haven't used that in a little while. Then you layer on top of it all the industry software, which is great and does a ton of really good things for the industry, but it's another thing to learn. And then there's the whole science behind drying. Like, just when you think of that, it's just data after data after data that our brains have a really hard time processing. And anyone who has onboarded a new water technician recently knows that you can't just show them a few videos and then the next day throw them out on a job site and expect them to be productive, right? It's just there's so much context, there's so many moving parts. SLAs are constantly getting updated, industry standards are constantly getting updated. And so that's the sweet spot of what artificial intelligence is great at, is processing mass amounts of data. And so what we've really focused on is we have massive training libraries of thousands of how to's from every aspect of how to use all certain software to how to do mold mitigation properly, what are the categories of water damage, PPE, just every aspect of restoration. And so where artificial intelligence is really transforming the experience for know-how customers is when I'm a worker out on a job site, and I have an aquarium that's overflowed, and I can't remember what category of water damage that is. Me getting that information before was a combination of asking around. If I didn't have any other coworkers on site, maybe I'd have to call my coworkers. Maybe I would risk Googling it and trying to, like, hopefully, the website that has the best search engine optimization is also accurate, which is not always the case. But getting that information quickly was very tough. But now, thanks to know-how and all of our customers who have all their processes, how-tos, SOPs available at their staff's fingertips, it's as easy as just asking a question to our artificial intelligence and getting that answer in a nutshell. And so that AI sweet spot, like I said, is processing massive amounts of data. And where it's benefiting a lot of restoration companies today is getting their employees the information they need to work competently and confidently without the thousands of interruptions that we've all become accustomed to because of the dynamic nature of the restoration industry.
Yeah, and I think you really touched on the fact it's there to help you enhance your team and your processes and procedures and really cut down the time, right? You talk about being in the field, calling around, looking on your phone. What if you don't have service? What if you, I mean, there's just so many things that go into it. Or do you have the most recent copy of the standard, right? That also is another thing. And so you talked about this really well. There's a piece of collaboration that is involved and it's vetted by none other than our own industry professionals. So, what better source of information and having that opportunity to be able to ask a question, you know, it helps you almost instantly. And let's be real, we're in an era of instant gratification. If anybody tells you otherwise, I might have to talk to them about that because it is just one of those things. Our customers expect instant gratification. And if we can utilize AI and the sources that we have and that are built around our business, we're able to better serve our customer. And at the end of the day, that's what it really comes down to. And so I have a question about this. How can you enhance, your operations in your company utilizing something like know-how? Is it customizable? I think that's also one of those things that's very questionable when people are talking about AI and they're like, "Oh, is it just like a one size fits all?" And I think you guys have a great solution and you can expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I encourage everyone to do, especially when you're thinking about your young staff, right? Those 18 to 30-year-olds that are joining your team. Our data tells us that over half of them do not have previous experience in the restoration industry. And so they're coming in very green, eager to learn, but not a ton of skills at their disposal day one on the job. And so, where a lot of companies I think have made mistakes is they've built training and onboarding and they've shared information with those staff in a way that makes sense to the person who wrote all the training. Right. So if they think in buckets and they like these like intense file folder structures and stuff like that, they tend to build out their training. Or if they like long-winded explanations about, the theory of drying and all of that stuff, then that ends up being the format that today's workers are forced to consume the how-to information in order to do their jobs properly and efficiently. But the problem is that's not the way their brains are wired, right? Just meet a young person, next time you're at Thanksgiving, watch your niece or nephew scroll through TikTok or Instagram, or just ask them, hey, if you had to replace the cabin air filter on your car and you'd never done that before, what would you do? And I can guarantee you almost all of them would say, I would go to YouTube and I would search how to replace cabin air filter and I would watch that video and I would just have my phone, precariously mounted underneath the hood of my car. And then I would just follow step by step. Those short, instant answers, like you were talking about, Kayla, is how our brains are wired to receive information if you're in that younger generation. And so there's just a mismatch in how training is given and how training and information people prefer to receive that. And so as long as that mismatch happens, efficiency is going to grind to a standstill. Because whenever somebody runs into a problem, if they don't know how to do something, the tools that they are forced to use by their employer just don't match how they learn properly. And so it leads to them having to search all corners of their company intranet or call 3 or 4 or 5 different people to get a hold of the person that has the right answer. And so providing your company with instant answers that they need, it is going to dramatically affect efficiency. Some of the people closely connected to our company have done these big reports on the profit of efficiency. And you can imagine a company where the staff are constantly getting all these little interruptions throughout the day. The amount of tangible work that they do for their company, by the end of the day, if you tally it up, it's often less than 50% of what the work that they were paid to do, right? If you pay them, 8 hours a day, it's usually 2.5 to 3 hours of work actually gets done because of all these interruptions. I have to go back to the warehouse. I have to make a stop at Home Depot. I ran into a scope issue. Customer is upset, right? Versus when the road is clear, the information is easy to access. Those numbers are 6.5, 7 hours that you're paying someone. They're actually doing work and earning a profit for your company. It's just a remarkable difference when the road is clear and employees have access to information quickly and easily.
Yeah, I would definitely say you touched on a key point right there. It can also not only enhance your business as far as processes and procedures, it can also help you improve your customer support and communication because now you have more time. You have more time to dedicate to your customer and provide them that personal interaction. And I think that's one key thing is we're in the business space and we think that something has to be sacrificed, but it doesn't have to be, right? With tools like this, it allows you to make sure that your staff is maximizing their time, but also taking care of your business as well. And I think you touched on something extremely important: distractions. With distractions, I think it's on average, if I'm not mistaken, it takes a couple minutes for you to get back to your train of thought and pick up where you left off. So every time that's happening, you're losing probably 2 or 4 minutes on each side of the distraction plus the distraction. So I think that's key, right? Why have all of these distractions with something we can have a little bit more control over and make our business that much better? Um, so in terms of what you guys do at Know How, I know you guys have some great pieces like about particularly process and procedures back to the basics types of things. And I wanted to share something with everybody, and I think I've shared this with you, Travis, but th- you shared that a lot of people, especially the younger generation that come into our space, don't really know our space. Maybe it's word of mouth, or maybe they've heard great things. And one thing that just always sticks in my mind is one of the number one how to's that we've had by you guys is how to remove a baseboard. And I
Hmm.
wanted to just kind of touch on that a little bit because this is how far down we're going with this type of AI utilization is we're getting down into the weeds of things. It's not just about how to handle, mold or water. It's actually everything that goes into your technician's day to day, all the way from the very bottom up to the top. So, can you kind of talk about that and why Know How really has their reach across start to finish?
Absolutely. Yeah. And hey, I want everyone to put themselves in the shoes of a new technician. They don't have a background in restoration, but they're hardworking. They learn quickly, and they want to do meaningful work. They're excited. They see the impact that restoration has on its customers. It's such a unique industry for like tangible difference in a customer's worst moment. So all that to say, let's pretend you've got a new employee that is bought in and they're excited, they want to make a difference, but they kind of feel green, like they kind of feel like the dummy, right? On a job site where a bunch of people have been doing this for a long time. And so, like you said, Kayla, basic things like how to remove baseboard and trim that so many people listening could probably do in their sleep. The majority of workers are entering the workforce without experience doing this before. And you can only ask the same question so many times before you start to feel dumb. So what happens in that situation when you start to feel dumb? Well, maybe you've just got the iron personality where you're like, I don't care if I feel dumb, I'm going to ask it anyways. God bless you if that's the case. Most people I've met do not have that kind of intestinal fortitude just to ask that question regardless of how they feel. What they do instead is they don't ask and they just guess. And they kind of say, I asked about this thing 20 minutes ago. Maybe I should just try to figure it out or try to remember it or do what makes the most sense to me. Um, and anyone who's been a manager for more than a week and a half in the restoration industry know that the end result of that is usually something that has to be done again, and a customer that might be upset in the process. And so, what know how does is so many of our processes, some of them super deep in the weeds. How do you use this specific section of this software? How do you calculate drying times? Things like that. But a lot of it, like you said, Kayla, is surface level stuff that employee can ask and get the information they need on how do I properly remove baseboard? What's the right tool to use to remove baseboard? That they just don't feel comfortable asking people. We all can agree. I think Googling is not a great answer for the accuracy, for the time it takes to actually find a good answer on Google these days. It's not ideal. And so, know how, when you become a know how customer, you get access to over 1,000 templates. But here's the important point: you were talking about customizability earlier, Kayla. All of these are fully customizable. And so you can say, actually, that's not the way that we remove baseboard at our company. Oh, our standards for PPE are a little different than the rest of the industry. And you edit all of those, and then those are instantly synced to any person who has any questions about that subject. They're not getting the know how way of doing things, they're getting your way of doing things. And so everyone is marching to the beat of the same drum, regardless of if they've been in the industry for 20 years or if they have been in the industry for about 2 weeks. High competence with technology, low competence in restoration. Know-how's helping fill the gap. There's one other part that I just want to speak to, Kayla, and this is the language translation component that I think is so important. It's becoming more and more of a factor in the restoration industry, but I think by and large we have not thought of a great solution for this. All the industry data, all the United States government data is pointing to the fact that non-English speakers are becoming an emerging percentage of the workforce, especially in blue collar industries. But so much of training and documentation has been done exclusively in English. And so not only are you at worst excluding those people who can make a huge impact in your company and help you take on more jobs, you're either excluding them from working for your company at all because of that language barrier, or you're keeping them from being able to do things the right way if they can work with your company. And so I just think breaking down those language barriers is such an important piece now, and it's only going to emerge more and more as a more important piece over the course of the next 5-10 years. And so companies will need a solution. How do I wield all the benefits of a growing Hispanic workforce in the United States? And how do I use that so that I can take on more projects? And whereas other companies don't have a solution to this problem of language barriers, we have it. And so we can take full advantage of this wave in order to grow our business and the careers and opportunities for these people.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really crucial part, especially about the translation, right? Because we're not just talking about one or two languages. I think you should elaborate on that just a little bit more so people understand how this can touch our country, geographically, right? Because we have different pockets of areas where they have specific cultures that are really heavy depending on where you live in the United States. And they don't necessarily just speak English or Spanish. And I think that's one thing that's really cool about the know how tool. Can you kind of talk about that too and let people know, it's not just a couple of languages, it's actually quite a few.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I would be happy to. So know how out of the box can translate any of your SOPs, any of your processes, your how-tos into over a few dozen languages. And honestly, they're just growing rapidly. It's very simple from us on our end from a technical perspective to add more languages. So occasionally we'll get a language they're like, oh, I didn't know there's too many language speakers of that in the United States. Great, we'll flip that switch on, and we've made that available as well. So very, very easy for us to translate documents into any language. But I think this AI piece is the part that I'm most excited about. So like I said, you've got thousands of processes. AI is way better at synthesizing data than the normal human brain is. And so imagine you're a Spanish speaking worker and you're trying to, I don't know, remove a toilet and the nuts won't come off or something like that. Something that maybe someone, if they've done it twice, they feel very comfortable, but the Spanish speaker, maybe they haven't done it before, and they don't even feel comfortable asking for help because of the language barrier between them and management. Well, the way we have know how set up is that Spanish speaker can ask the question in Spanish to know how. Our AI translates it instantly. It translates it into English. It finds the process where we explain here's what to do in case the nuts won't come off when you're removing a toilet in English, because the documentation was written in English, translates it instantly back into Spanish. And then within seconds, that worker has the answer that they need so they can keep working properly. Their language barrier was not an issue for them when it came to doing this job right. It didn't lead to frustration between them and their manager because they didn't do it right. And why didn't they ask? They didn't feel comfortable asking. All of that was resolved. And that person was able to do an excellent job, even in something they hadn't done before, even when documentation didn't exist in the language that they spoke, because of know-how's artificial intelligence driven translation tools.
Yeah, that's really key too. And I think we talk about the instant gratification. It also provides peace of mind to your staff and it allows them to build their own confidence because once they use it in their off time, you never know, they may actually be utilizing it so that when they do face something in the future, they're able to tackle it. And I think that's another portion of what you guys provide, right? We don't have all of the resources or time to actually train our staff. If we're being quite honest, things are always ripping and roaring in our industry, and so, what better way to utilize AI to our advantage and how we practice our business processes and procedures, right? And so, with all of this being said, I think we've made so many leaps and bounds in the technology space, especially AI. What do you think we'll see? In the coming years, like where can we be better? I guess is a nicer way to say it. And I know we don't have all the answers, but I just think it's something that people can maybe look forward to and understand that AI is a tool. It helps us become more efficient. And how else can it help us utilize, its capacity to the fullest?
Awesome. Yeah, you bet. Let me be super, super tangible with this. And so let me, if I can break it down into a few categories, your
Yeah.
question of how will AI impact the restoration industry. I think let's talk about how it's impacting it today. I think what does it look like by the end of 2025? And then what is the like more distant future? Some more innovations are going to be necessary, but I think the tide is going in this direction. So to talk about today, we have data. We asked a bunch of restorers, and so majority of restorers, over 70% of restorers, very interested in artificial intelligence, right? If you compare it to last year, there was like some like, I'm open to it. Some are like, I'm a little skeptical. I'm a little nervous about it. That percentage of people that are skeptical or resistant is declining. The people who are open and actually using it is increasing pretty significantly. And so right now, when we asked, how are you using AI? Number one is using something like ChatGPT to help me write. And so write emails, write social media posts. I think that that's a great dipping your toe in the water when it comes to artificial intelligence, but none of us get paid by writing social media posts, right? That's not the core value proposition of a restoration company. And so a lot of companies are only currently using AI on the margins of what they do. And I think by the end of the year, that will transform to get closer to the value chain of what restorers actually provide. So to provide some tangible details of how some companies are using AI now and more will be using it in the future. Maybe just to talk a little bit about what we're seeing on Know-how's platform first. Like I said, workers are getting their questions answered instantly in Know-how based on company documentation. We talked about not knowing, how to remove a toilet. Oh, I don't remember the category of water loss. Know-how helps me with that with Know-how's AI tools. But also a lot of companies they're just adding their PDFs into Know-how, right? So I have an SLA from Intact Insurance, and it says, in 130 pages, buried deep on page 46, paragraph 3, subsection C, it says, by the way, park in the back. Very few drivers are going to get to page 6, subsection 43. And so That is the type of information that AI is so great at surfacing. Hey, I'm on an intact insurance job. Should I park in the front or the back? AI reads the massive PDF. Hey, Steve, you should park in the back. Right? That information is just coming to the surface so much better thanks to artificial intelligence. That's what we're seeing right now. In addition, we have this brand new tool that we just launched in Know How. This is going to be my most like ShamWow guy moment here, where I'm just going to try to like very, directly talk about something in Know How, where you can film somebody explaining how to do something in real life on your phone. Just hit record, 2-minute video. Here's how you remove baseboard and trim. Know How has a new feature called Know How Capture that takes that video and extracts it and turns it into step-by-step documentation with video clips embedded all throughout the way. Okay, step one, here's what you do in a short little 20-second clip. Step two, step three, step four, that then can be translated into any language. And so the barrier to getting high quality information is just being thrown out the window thanks to artificial intelligence right now, start of 2025. By the end of 2025, I think we're only going to see more of this. More companies are going to have access to information in their employees' hands. You're going to see more documentation tools. I know Amy, great example of it's a tool within DocuSketch that uses artificial intelligence to help you write stronger estimates. I know CoreLogic is using AI to help the contents identification process be so much better and easier. I think we're going to see more examples of language barriers being dismantled, like we were talking about. If I can just a quick other little divergence on this language piece. I was at an event that RIA was hosting in New Hampshire in September. And I was chatting with someone who was talking about getting their workers certified. I said, we've got some very, very talented workers. I want to get them industry recognized certification, but this is the second time that I've sent him to go do the full training, get certified, and he failed again because it's long form written training, written exam in Spanish, or sorry, in English. The worker speaks Spanish, but the written exam is in English. And so he can't get certified. He knows all the stuff, but because we have this old language requirement that you have to be able to write, a 3-point essay, for some of these answers, then people who don't speak English confidently but are still excellent on the job site are getting held back. And so I think more and more of those language barriers are going to be dismantled thanks to AI just making access to information way easier than it's ever been before. Finally, maybe just to future cast. Sorry, I'm like, use a Canadian analogy here. I'm like a snowball rolling down a hill where it just are just gaining a bunch of momentum. But finally, maybe just to look towards what the future of the restoration industry is going to look like with AI. I'm really excited for some of the stuff that the CoreLogic's working on with contents recognition with AI. And I'm certain they've got just a bunch of other stuff cooking underneath the scenes as well on just how to make the process of estimating and documentation so much better thanks to the power of artificial intelligence. And then what we think a lot about in Know How is training and equipping workers. And I can just tell you the future of training, thanks to artificial intelligence, it's going to feel like a state change. It's going to feel like something we haven't seen before. You imagine like dynamic training based on a worker's competency and expertise. Let's say they are excellent at contents, but they're struggling when it comes to mold, or maybe it's struggling with some of the science or some of the software. You imagine training for that worker that is constantly evolving and bobbing and weaving based on where they're showing competence and where they're struggling to help get them to where you need to be. Right. And I think that artificial intelligence is only about a year or two from having each worker having a personalized tutor in the areas that they want to grow in that can help respond based on their inputs, based on their competency. That's coming soon. We're very excited for that future.
Yeah, I definitely think you touched on some really key areas in our industry as a whole, not just the how to, not just the training portion, but there's actual software and things that we handle in our day to day that are utilizing AI. And that's just the way things are going. And I think it, like you said, using the chat GPT or utilizing Apple's, integration with chat GPT and things like that will help people get their feet wet and test things on things outside of maybe their processes and procedures, and then they realize like, oh, okay, this is actually a good thing. And I think that's the beauty of it, because obviously it takes time. Get your feet wet and understand it. But with all of these, cool changes and everything comes an opportunity to capitalize. I think that's one way to really look at this for anybody that may not be too sure, a little scared. This is a way to help make your business better, help your employees all be on the same page. Because how often have we heard companies or owners say, oh, we had to redo something because somebody didn't do it the same way? And this is where we're going with this type of technology, to ensure that we're able to help the success of our restoration professionals. So I'd really like to thank you for your time today and elaborating on all of the things scary to some, but also second nature to others, right? And the beauty of this is collaboration across all areas of our industry. We're here to help one another through these times of AI and changes, and what better way to talk about where know-how would like to go and where we see AI actually helping our industry. So again, thank you for your time. And as always, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. And until next time, we will see you on the next episode of Ask the Expert. Take care.